Hello everyone. It's been a hot minute, but our Amir back at your service. And today we're going over some changes to the tier list. It's been quite a while. A lot of updates have come out and opinions have changed on the matters, and of course we do take into account some of the new campaigns, but some things stay the same, and we'll be adjusting the tier list based on, well, those changes. So, let's start off with a lord that is still pretty much the epitome of balance, which is the Abbot, who is a B-tier lord. He's a very strong economy, his castles are not weak in the slightest, and if I'm quite honest, in general I would say that Abbot is a very good lord. His biggest downside is, well, his units. Archers are fine, but the monks, they just are not good units. Even if you bring out a bunch of them, you just put down a couple of towers with a few archers and then you're useless. So, that's about it on the Abbot. Caleiff, who's, I would say he's very close to S tier. Maybe even in S tier. But I think he narrowly loses out on it because he only uses the tall towers. Forgot their names. His castles are generally a joke if you just build like 5 or 6 catapults. After which it's a useless castle because it's very tight. But I will say he is probably the most annoying harassment lord in the entire game, even with all the new DLC lords. Caleiff just... He's a pain to deal with. That's much as I will say on that matter. Unit troop-wise, I mean, slaves speak for themselves. But besides that, he isn't really that threatening on the attack unless he has a ton of gold. Because he doesn't really print as much horde archers as Wazir. And he generally tends to use ballistas and catapults to an extent where it's kind of irrelevant. Because if he just used catapults, he would be a more threatening lord, I would say. So I think it suits perfectly fine in A tier, but barely misses out on the S tier because of those things. Canary, F tier. She's pretty much a weaker rat. Which is a hard thing to do, I would say. I think where she loses out mainly is the fact that she has a giant gaping hole in her castle. Sure, it's trapped, but you just send a couple of troops in there and it's gone. Like, she's just a rat. A copy of the rat. And while we're at it, we put rat and F tiers at the same time. Probably above Canary. Like, rat's always been F tier, it's never gonna change, and the reasons are obvious. Alright, Crocodile. So, one of the newer lords, obviously, for DE. But I will put the Crocodile in B tier. I think the Crocodile is a very well-balanced lord. He is very frustrating to siege unless you have catapults because of the amount of pitch and the rivers he builds. So, in general, sieging him is a pain. He is very quick to start up his castle. He doesn't really need a lot of gold, so he will start harassing very fast and attacking. His troops aren't bad, but they're not great. Like, the troops are harassment troops. That's what they are. So, the longer the game goes, the less threatening the Crocodile becomes. So, eventually, he just stops being a threat entirely. But in the early game, he's one of the stronger lords. That's for sure. Amir is still S tier. Amir, I mean, this guy is the perfect balance of aggression, economy, and castle design. Like, it's just a very strong character. And there's little to nothing to really criticize him about. I think he is contender for the strongest lord in the game still, even after all these years. Frederick. So, Frederick is a lord that has changed a bit over the time, because in the past Frederick used to be right there in the D tier, because of a bug that made him and Marshall not buy anything. So they would just sit on 40 grand gold and not do anything. But right now he's on A tier. Because of the change, they did a few patches back where Frederick and Marshall will now buy troops. He's become a lot more threatening, and he is definitely a strong lord. He still is very slow. He produces troops that are really useless, like the Horse Knights. Because they're just harassment troops. Besides that, they don't do anything. They can't really siege you. But he is a very annoying lord to siege himself. He also doesn't attack very often, in comparison to Lord like Caleiff and Amir. But his attacks do hit hard, especially the later you go. Jewel is a lord I would put also in A tier. Probably above Caleiff and Frederick even. So, Jewel, her castles are a bit meh. Because they're so big that they're easy to just punish on one of the sides. But what Jewel does have is she builds enormous troops. Like, her armies are huge. And sure, there are a lot of pikemen, but pikemen, keep in mind, are stronger than swordsmen in this game. Because they're faster and they do a little bit less damage, but that's fine. Swordsmen just are so slow that they're relevant, I would say. But I will say that Jewel misses out on S tier because of the way her castles are made. They become so easy to siege. That's why. Kahena is a lord I would put in C tier. She is another harassment lord that is focused on the early game. But yeah, like she is weaker than Crocodile, I would say. I will say that like Kahena's castles are weaker than Crocodile as well. They're easier to siege because, well, they're squares. So, and the units she uses are very annoying in the early game, but once you have a little wall going with archers, she's useless. Alright. One of the newer lords. I like her, Lionus. She is strong. Her castles are not that threatening. I would probably even put her in S tier. Because she is insanely aggressive. She produces troops like a motherfucker. And her armies are strong. Her economy is good. And her castles are fine. Like, they're not great, but they're fine. So, at the bottom of S tier is where she belongs, I think. Because she is definitely a strong lord. Marshall is D tier, nothing changed there. Like, even the fact that he buys weapons, sure, it doesn't fix the fact that he just makes shit castles and his troops suck. Nizar is still S tier. Still an insanely strong lord, insanely annoying to siege, and generally a nuisance. Nomad is still B tier. He is maybe even A tier. Nomad is by far the most annoying harassment lord in the entire game, because he will instantly start attacking, because his troops are just that cheap. I like Nomad, because after the early game, this lord becomes entirely irrelevant. Like, once he runs out of gold, this lord is useless, but in any match where you start with little gold and he starts with a lot, he is gonna be so annoying for you. Philip is after, above red. It's just a red with, well, bigger walls and knights. But besides that, he's irrelevant. Pig is B tier. Pig just, like, where Pig falls short is the fact that his castles are pretty bad. And he spams macemen and crossbow archers. But besides that, he doesn't really do anything. He harasses, sure, a little bit with catapults and with macemen. But his army sizes aren't anything to graze at, and he doesn't really have any protection on his armies. Like, if he just walks up to, he will just walk up to you, and you will shoot down most of his army before he even reaches the wall. So, Lionus, I would say, Lionheart is B tier. Pig is high B tier, by the way. He's not low B tier. Lionheart suffers from the same problems he had in the original Crusader, and he still suffers from them right now. He is too passive. He doesn't really do anything. His castles are meh, they're not great. They're fine, but they're not great. And he doesn't really do anything. He also, his main unit are knights, and knights are just not good units. They are not. Because you just put a couple of crossbow archers and now their knights are gone. And it's kind of sad, but it is what it is. Saladin is still S tier, very high S tier. Still got an insane economy, very good castle designs, good troops. In general, this lord is... like, you can change Amir and Saladin probably. But I personally put Saladin above Amir. Sentinel, another very high S tier. Strong castles, strong troops, very aggressive once he gets gold and his castle going. And he builds massive armies. Alright, the Sergeant. So since we last updated the list, Lionus is obviously new, but the Sergeant is also new. And I put the Sergeant probably in high A tier. Actually, I think I put him in S tier. So, the Sergeant has one weakness. One singular weakness. His castles are enormous, all of them. They're very big, which means his defenses are often spread thin. But he produces so much gold and so many troops. Especially the later the game goes, he's probably the strongest late game lord, together with like Saladin, Wolf, and Amir. They are all just completely nuts once they reach that point of the game. Because they're very hard to siege at that point, because of the amount of troops that they have. They will just keep attacking. Well, where do we put him? Probably C tier. So, the sheriff suffers from one problem, and it's the fact that he has a shit castle that he burns down the moment you try to siege it. Where he just destroys his entire economy, and after that he will never recover. He's annoying, because he's a harassment lord, but once you attack him once and he destroys his castle, he will never recover. Snake. C tier. Snake is better than Sheriff, even though Sheriff has better troops, but the Snake doesn't burn down his entire castle, and he's very annoying in the early game. Sultan is also incredibly bad. He just wastes his entire ecom and then he's useless for the rest of the game. So here's the first big change from my last tier list. I'm gonna put the trader, the merchant, in B tier. I put him in S tier last time, but after playing a lot more, I will say he's B tier. The reason why he's B tier is, sure, he produces a ton of gold and a ton of troops, but his castles are so bad. They are so easy to siege. You just catapult bomb the shit out of it and it disappears. But I will say, on high econ, he's an incredibly annoying lord because he uses camel archers, which are just insanely tanky. The heavy archers. Vizier is still high A tier. He will never reach S tier because of the way he fights. He just spams horde archers and it's annoying, but he just doesn't have the kill threat. Wolf is still an S tier lord. He is below Sentinel and below the Sergeant, but he's still S tier. Sure, he has fallen off a bit, but I'd still say he's not a bad lord at all. So here are the two big ones. So the most recent DLC added Baldwin the 4th and Bullseye. With the most recent announcement, obviously having the Doctor and Bybars, which I'm excited for, but we don't have really much intel on them yet. But this DLC was a disappointment for me. Why? Because I was very excited to have Baldwin in the game. Let's get to Baldwin first. Baldwin is a B tier lord. And that's for two reasons. One, Baldwin is very slow. He is one of the slower startup lords, and he never attacks. He is so passive in this game. I don't know what they did, if they made a mistake or something, but he just tends to never attack, even with a ton of gold. He's just so passive. And besides that, his castles are pretty weak too. I would have imagined bigger, cooler castles, but they're just squares with extra steps. They're not that good. You just ram right through them. Which is a disappointment in my eyes. I was excited for Baldwin the 4th, but I guess this is where he just sits. Maybe if they update his aggressiveness, if they make him more aggressive, he's definitely up here. Or even up here. He will never be up here. Because of his castle layout. But before that, he's just a beater. And here comes the big surprise. Bullseye is an S tier lord. The guy who sits and gives commands to you in the campaign is an S tier lord. Why? Why is Bullseye an S tier lord? 2 reasons. 1. His castles are absolutely nuts to siege because he has so many crossbow archers. It's very hard to siege, and the layouts are good as well. And the lord itself, he's actually pretty aggressive. Obviously, he doesn't have the highest kill threat. That's why he's not on the same level, I would say, probably as these 4. So he's low S tier. But there's definitely a reason for him to be up in S tier. If you even look at some of Bullseye's castles, then you are just gonna know that it is a pain to siege. So he uses a mixture of the square towers and perimeter turrets, and he always makes pitfalls, a ton of crossbow archers, and in general he uses macemen and crossbowmen. The macemen are also annoying to deal with, obviously. He's literally just a very big improvement on the pig, if anything. Besides that, he has an effective economy. Because he has a very simplistic army to build, and he mostly gets his gold from like stone, iron, and food. But he is literally just gonna keep sieging you until you die. So that's why he's an S tier lord for me. It's just that simple. So let me know what you think. I think this is a very good layout for what we have in the game right now. And I hope that Baibars is gonna be another insanely strong lord. So we'll see. And I'll see you guys after the patch.